It seems that Eamonn Holmes has taken up a new hobby. He's currently huffing and puffing his way to the haberdashery to pick up a few scraps of fabric and a box of pins, and is setting about fashioning himself a voodoo doll in the form of Phillip Schofield. Insiders have apparently dubbed the ITV This Morning scandal the Sofapocalypse, and with Phillip Schofield still hiding from spit under the garbage can, there is one fellow in particular that is wishing he'll stay there for good. Yes, not shying away from giving Phillip a good kicking is Eamonn Holmes, who has been positively beaming his way through the downfall of the former presenter. The cameraman on his live GB News show has been ducking and diving for his life, desperately trying to avoid the daggers flying out of Eamonn's mouth. As the presenter runs his grubby little fingers through the hair of a white cat, he deadpanned down the lens. "Anyone watching today who has kissed Phillip Schofield, let us know," he said, relishing yet another chance to stick the boot in after Schofield attempted to defend his fling with a young male colleague by announcing that he had made just one mistake in his 41-year career. The very next day after Holly Willoughby uttered those infamous three little words, "You okay?" Eamonn observed of Holly, "You think she's got a big mouth? She won't be using it today." Perhaps it's a combination of his Irish wit and a nose for what will draw in the viewers, but is there more than meets the eye to his abject glee regarding Phillip Schofield's downfall? The thick gnarly roots of Eamonn's loathing of him have been growing for decades and appear to have spread their rotten tendrils to a place far deeper than the Grand Canyon. With a chip on his shoulder bigger than his head, it's surprising that he's kept his balance all these years. A juicy mix of grievances over Phillip Schofield's professional and financial successes and a deep-seated abject hatred for what Eamonn perceives to be rude and high-handed behavior. There is also the matter of the young man involved in all of this, which to some appears to have been forgotten about, brushed under the carpet to make way for a barrage of headlines about Holly and her Oscar-winning performance. Eamonn, though, battles on, and has revealed his softer side, showing what appears to be genuine concern for Schofield's former lover. He said that his wife and former This Morning host, Ruth Langsford, were good friends with the youngster, particularly Ruth, who worked with him after his seemingly turbulent relationship with Schofield ended and he was shipped off to Loose Women, where she took him under her motherly wing. However, her husband's comments have somewhat made things tricky for Ruth, who has had to navigate handovers with Holly Willoughby hours after his cutting remarks. A source said, "People in TV are genuinely agog over how aggressively Eamonn has briefed against Phillip, but he thinks Phillip and Holly were a pair of phonies, that Phillip was a colossal fraud. He's genuinely angry. Lord knows what Ruth is thinking." Eamonn has claimed that the young man stayed over with Phillip on playtime Thursdays and would arrive back at work on a Friday morning in a taxi paid for by ITV. Yet this has been denied by Schofield, who insists he had only around 5 encounters with the man, that he only came to his flat once, and that he didn't have an ITV taxi account. Friends of Eamonn, meanwhile, have suggested that they are not surprised by his outbursts and that Eamonn believed that he was the only proper journalist on This Morning and that it was unjust that Schofield was not only above him in the hierarchy, but paid so much more than him. Eamonn was said to be on around £150,000 a year for his one-day-a-week presenting role, while Holly and Phil were on more than £700,000 for their 4 days. A source said, Phillip had the red carpet treatment. He and Holly were seen as stars. All TV is a hierarchy and they were paid far more. Eamonn chafed against it. His rider, the requests a star makes for their dressing room, was a block of inexpensive cheese, but Phillip would get lovely wines brought in from far vintners. Eamonn couldn't see how someone like him, a proper journalist, would come beneath the bloke who was in the broom cupboard with Gordon the gopher. Eamonn, it seems, has run out of pins to stick in his voodoo doll, and quickly nips out to buy another box and a few more scraps of fabric to make another doll in the form of an aubergine called Martin Frizzel. Yes, Eamonn has beef with him too, and the This Morning editor talked of the relentless coverage of the scandal last weekend, saying, "I think there's some scores being settled." Frizzel named no names, but surely must have been thinking of Eamonn. Many years ago, Frizzel was, just like Eamonn, a noted journalist, covering the fall of the Berlin Wall and the Tiananmen Square massacre. In 2000, he joined his wife, Fiona Phillips, on GMTV as editor of the show. She had been the anchor on GMTV for 3 years by then, alongside Eamonn, who had been in situ since 1993. At first, their sofa pairing was harmonious. But Eamonn admitted in his autobiography, "He was the boss of both me and his wife, not a scenario they would recommend in Harvard Business School. Within weeks of arriving, Frizzel told Eamonn he wanted to downgrade him from 5 days to 4, bringing in Andrew Castle. The shake-up ended with a titanic clash over Eamonn's hours and pay. Eamonn wanted to be paid as per his 5-day-a-week contract, while management felt he should take a pay cut to reflect the lesser hours worked. Lawyers were called in. Eamonn kept his money, but started to look for a new job. One pal from those days sighs, he definitely had a point, but it is easier to cross Eamonn than it is to cross a road. Eamonn told friends later, "I can't tell you how awful Martin Frizzel made life for me. He made my existence a living hell." A year after leaving GMTV, Eamonn started presenting This Morning on Fridays with wife Ruth, while Fern Britton and Schofield were the Monday to Thursday team. Again, at first, all seemed well. But Fern quit in 2009, allegedly tired of Phillip's power on the program and his higher salary, although she later denied she'd departed because of money. Phillip was allowed to choose her successor, step forward his bestie Holly Willoughby, and, in 2016, the pair were joined by Eamonn's former boss Frizzel. Frizzel was delighted by Phillip, whom he regarded as the king of the show. For his part, Phillip called Frizzel the best captain we have ever had. Where did all of this leave Eamonn? Out in the cold, apparently. A source said Phillip was very dismissive of Eamonn, quite openly, and so was Martin. "We used to call Eamonn and Ruth the B team. Guests were cherry-picked to be on the show from Monday to Thursday, that's where the prestige was." On a personal level, Phillip and Eamonn never got on. Eamonn found him snippy and passive-aggressive, and thought he treated the lower-down people on the show very badly. Phillip was impolite. He would ignore you and then be nice to you, and you were meant to be grateful for that. It made Eamonn furious. In the run-up to the 2019 general election, tensions came to a head. Frizzel was insistent Eamonn should present then Scottish First Minister Nicola Sturgeon with a This Morning Christmas bauble. Eamonn was equally insistent that he would do no such thing, saying it would breach impartiality rules for broadcasters in the weeks before an election. He and Frizz didn't speak again after that, says the senior source. In late 2019, Schofield's much gossiped about relationship with his young runner came to an end. Some say he declared his love for Schof at the National Television Awards in January 2020, others claim they had an altercation. TV presenter Piers Morgan says the former happened, while GB News host Dan Wootton says he saw confrontations between the man and Phillip and Holly separately that night. A few weeks later, Phillip came out to none other than Eamonn and Ruth on the Friday edition of This Morning. Afterward, Eamonn said he had only been told what was happening 20 minutes before. On screen, Eamonn joked to Phillip that discovering he was gay settled a question. "There is this great imponderable in life that has always bothered me. I thought how come he can sit in a hot tub with Holly Willoughby and Steph, Phillip's wife, doesn't have a problem, and Dan, Holly's husband, doesn't have a problem." Phillip, however, fully defended Eamonn, tweeting, "Can I just say that Eamonn Holmes and Ruth Langsford were utterly magnificent with me today, privately downstairs just the three of us and upstairs in front of the world. I couldn't have hoped for a better, calming, and loving set of hugs and support. I adore them both." However, Eamonn now says he feels he was used on that day. In October 2020, Phillip released his big-money autobiography, Life's What You Make It. A sign of the lack of goodwill between the two men is that he misspelled Eamonn's name throughout. Within 9 months, he and Ruth were on a warning that Frizzel wanted to shake up the presenting team to include popular stand-in Alison Hammond. The married couple, both 60 at the time, were surprised and furious to be told they were losing their regular weekly gig. Well-connected sources claimed they felt cast onto the scrap heap. When they left, many colleagues got in touch to offer their good wishes for the future. From Phillip and Holly, there was not a solitary word, call, text, or card. Eamonn told pals that Holly was blank, aloof, and cold when they were colleagues, and now it's as if he never existed. He says that Phillip and Holly were rude, cold, and poisonous towards him, which he still cannot understand. Eamonn's view is Holly and Phil always thought they were way above the audience, and way above Eamonn and Ruth, and they were wrong on both counts. Holly is now trying to keep her head above water and attempting to deep breathe her way out of the stigma of being associated with her disgraced bestie. She is concentrating her menacing grin on retaining goodwill among viewers and fighting like an alley cat to keep her warm and comfortable spot on the This Morning sofa. Perhaps life would be a lot easier for her if she had Eamonn on her side, or she might find that she too has been fashioned into a Willoughby-shaped voodoo doll and added to his growing collection, sat on a shelf, ready and waiting for Eamonn to stick the pins in. Please like and subscribe for more journeys through the Blinkerhole. For entertainment purposes only.